the editorial director at Pollen. Welcome to another Pollen gathering from Are You Okay? Gotta say, this is absolutely my favorite part of every week. And I say that a little bit quietly because my kids are here and they're pretty sure that distance learning is my favorite part of every week. That is not the case. I highly recommend keeping your camera on if you can. Turn on the grid view to get sort of like the full screen of faces. It's really cool. It's like the Brady Bunch, but supersized. I think the Brady Bunch was like an old serialized radio program or something. I don't know. Just kidding. I'm 42. I know what the Brady Bunch is. For those of you who don't know much about Pollen, we're a media arts nonprofit dedicating to fostering empathy, encouraging human connection, inspiring meaningful action. We do that through narrative storytelling and bringing people together. You know this by now. This has been hard on everybody. So Pollen's team regularly checks in with each other, asking how we're doing, how we're holding up, challenging ourselves to keep doing what we do best. And that is creating space for processing complex issues, elevating voices that go unheard too often, and holding our shared humanity at the center of everything. And in those conversations, we decided to make a full pivot, shifting our content and our gatherings to focus on issues connected to this unprecedented time. So every Thursday at 2 p.m., we host these free virtual gatherings to hear from guest speakers about their personal experiences with the COVID-19 crisis and the experiences of their communities, their colleagues, and their loved ones. This is all part of what we call the Are You Okay initiative. It's a collection of stories, art, and connection during these extraordinary times. It's also our small way of being able to directly funnel much needed financial resources to speakers, performers, writers, and artists right now when they need it most. Normally, Pollen events cost about $35 a ticket. These gatherings are free. So in lieu of that ticket price, we ask that you consider a small donation of any size in lieu of that usual price. And you can donate to Pollen at givemn.org. Before we get started, I want to thank the University of Minnesota for their partnership in hosting the technology for today's gathering and all the gatherings we've done so far. And I want to also thank our sponsors, the US Bank Foundation, Bush Foundation, Team Dynamics, Ide Bailey, and Clifton Larson Allen. That's the admin stuff. I'm going to get out of the way here. Enough from me. I'm thrilled now to kick us off by introducing Shauna Adams, known as the Lioness. Shauna is a native of North Minneapolis. Started a hip-hop career 15 years ago and has become one of the Twin Cities' premier homegrown artists. Conscious lyricist who speaks to the souls of marginalized populations by addressing issues of racial inequalities and social justice in efforts to encourage and empower youth, women of color, and indigenous communities across the country. Thank you, Shauna. Please take it away.
Thank you. I appreciate you all reaching out to me and allowing me to join you all today. Just to start off, I've been thinking about everyone and, thinking about how everyone is doing. And I just want to give a reminder to be gentle with yourselves, take time to stretch, meditate, get out in nature, be resourceful, wear a mask and gloves, take care of your heart, check in with your tribe. But I wrote a piece around these times, so I want to share that. Seek, go find, for the bull, I got no time. Be still and know. We gotta move when it's go time, been moving way too fast. Our creator made us slow down, no one outside. We just online and online. What you gonna do if your phone die? Pick the phone up, check on your tribe. Nothing on the news but the blues, no true 45 reporting lies. Long nights, days just gone by. Got a kind heart and a strong mind. Had to dig deep from a gold mine. It was in me the whole time. Mad books getting nosedives, distance breaking soul ties. And it makes the heart grow fonder. Took away where you won't find us. Been away, but I'm not hiding. I was feeling great, had to rise up. Get my shit straight, get it lined up. Now I'm feeling great, feeling fired up. Man, I've been awake, early riser. We gon' be okay, we survivors. We gon' be okay if we rise up. We gon' celebrate and pop a bottle. Hope the smoke and mirrors don't blind you. Look toward the future, not behind us. Got the iron peeping through the blinds. Spread the good vibes, not the virus. Be resourceful, keep the door closed. Take the ginger for the sore throat. Send the prayers up for the elders, stack the shells up and be joyful. Don't let terror or propaganda detour you. Don't let pressure or paranoia destroy you. Stay blessed up, don't be stressed out, rest up, seek shelter. Don't allow doubt to fester. If you're on the front lines, God bless you. stay out of crowds but connected. I'm the Lioness. I appreciate you all.
Wow, wow. Big thanks. That was awesome. I'm so glad we're recording these so I can go back and listen to that a few times. That was amazing. Thank you so much. I'm going to turn things over to Julie Cohen, Pollen's Engagement and Advancement Director, who's going to introduce our guest speakers and keep us moving here today. Julie.
Thank you, Jerome. And thank you, the Lioness. That was so healing, and I feel really fired up now. I needed that dose of optimism today, so thank you very much for that. And thank you all for joining us today. I'm going to share, each of these virtual gatherings we talk about, are you okay? How you doing? So I'm going to start by saying that I don't think I'm unique in this, but I've been feeling really burnt out this week. And all the work and the anxiety and the frustration feels like it's been nonstop. And I know that my feelings are valid. Jamie tells me that all the time. But I'm also quick to remind myself of all the healthcare workers who are risking their lives each and every day to care for the sick, all of our essential frontline workers who are making sure we stay fed and connected to our communities. So I know that they're experiencing a level of burnout that is far more extreme. So I'm really excited today to be able to talk to two rock star women, both of whom have deep experience in healthcare and public health, Erin Murphy and Amira Adawe. We're going to kick things off with Erin. Erin Murphy is the founder and executive director of Our Stories, Our Health. Erin's a nurse and was formerly the executive director of the Minnesota Nurses Association. She served in the Minnesota House of Representatives from 2007 to 2018, ran for governor in 2018, and is currently a candidate for Senate District 64. Welcome, Erin Murphy.
Hi, everybody. How are you doing? I am so happy to be with you.
Yeah.
I'm so happy to join you finally.
We're glad to have you here, Erin. Thank you so much for making time today. So we're going to start things off with our usual question. How are you holding up? How are you feeling?
I think I'm doing pretty well. I would echo what you said, that this week has been harder than the previous weeks, and I'm not quite sure why. Probably because, we're well into this and the end is a long way off and unclear. I am working, my kids are healthy, I'm healthy, my partner's healthy. My dad is 86 years old and scooting around a small town in Wisconsin without a mask on, so that's a worry. And I am in conversation a lot with people about what we're experiencing right now. And I think the thing that's hardest is the isolation and loneliness. I miss being with people and in human contact with people. But I'm okay. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, I feel that on the missing people. I really miss my colleagues and being in an open work environment and just yelling at each other in a pleasant and fun way. But we're all really close to each other, so we're constantly like, hey. I definitely miss that, just being sharing space with people. So thank you for sharing that with us. When we talked earlier, obviously you're very engaged in the community, both with your work at Our Stories, Our Health, and also as a candidate and an advocate for healthcare and supporting Minnesotans. So I'm curious about how you're keeping up the spirit of community when we're, being asked to stay physically distant from one another. How are you doing that? What's been successful for you?
So I am spending way more time on the phone than I have in past years. And people are talking on the phone much more than they have. And that is the case both in my world of candidacy and in my world of advocacy. And I'm grateful for that. I've been really surprised. And a lot of the conversations that we're having right now are very, very little to do with, are you ready for casting your ballot to endorse a candidate, and way more about how are you doing? How are you feeling? And making sure that people who live in the community who are a little older are okay. So just checking in a lot.
Mhm.
I am new in this morning video and have since I started staying home in the middle of March, which for me, it's the weirdest thing because I am just talking, but I feel like I am connecting to the world in a way that is real, and I get feedback from people. So it's sort of like a daily devotion for me to remember that I'm a part of something bigger than my front yard, and that we're really in this together, even though we are apart. So that has been really meaningful for me. And I have been wildly impressed with the solidarity with which people are, not everyone, but most people around us are interacting with this value of solidarity. Like to get through this, we have to act for one another, look out for one another. And that's persisting. And I hope we hang on to that as we come through this and into whatever is our next chapter. So it is, it's a conscious effort to connect. It's important to connect. It's why you are doing what you're doing, and I'm so happy to be a part of it.
Oh, thank you, Erin. Yeah, I've been having it's fun to pick up the phone and surprise people with a phone call. I think we're so used to, email and text and video chats now that sometimes just picking up the phone feels oddly like more connected sometimes than even just doing a video like this. So thanks for reminding us that phones still exist and work, and we can use those as another way to stay connected with one another. I want to shift now to a little bit about your work with Our Stories, Our Health. Obviously, you have been advocating for health for a very long time, as a nurse and with the Minnesota Nurses Association, and in your current role. I'm curious just about, we talked a lot about the disparities and the inequities that exist in our healthcare system that you've been painfully aware of for a very long time. But I'm curious about kind of how you're thinking about those systems now in the face of this pandemic.
So for those of us, and I've been a nurse since since 1985, so a long time. And the pandemic for us, this experience with the virus has laid open for anybody who is paying any attention to the tremendous flaws of a market-based system. Including, the supply chain issue, getting the tools that providers need, whether it is the protective gear, the testing that we're, hearing more about here in Minnesota, a vaccine, right? It is all complicated, more complicated because our system is a system that is a series of competitors in order to, earn a return on investment and profit. And when we need a system to pull together, it's hard to overcome those very difficult challenges. So the things that we knew existed before, what it means to, have, you don't have coverage because you don't have a job, has been exacerbated because so many people have lost their jobs. The disparities that we know in terms of outcomes for people, whether it is because of their zip code, their race, their wealth or lack thereof. It's all very clear for us to see right now. And I hope that by using the examples that we're seeing right now, that we can coalesce more around building something better for us in the future. I was thinking, Julie, about our conversation yesterday in preparation for this. And I think there's one really difficult thing that we're experiencing right now that it crystallizes what it means to be in a pandemic and what it means to be together. There are nurses and doctors and all sorts of healthcare providers, whether they're in home care or nursing homes, all across the system, that are going to work on a pretty regular basis without the gear that they need, right? We've heard stories about where they've had surges in other parts of the country and they don't have adequate beds and ventilators, and so they're trying to acquire and set that up. So providers are in a position of having to decide who's going to survive and who's not going to survive because they don't have the gear that they need. And there are a lot of providers here in Minnesota that are currently working without N95 masks, or they're using them long before their standard issue lifetime, right? So they're using them and reusing them. And that is all, I think, the result of a system that is competing, but the providers keep going to work, they're putting themselves in harm's way. The thing that I've been hearing about that is so tender is that we have loved ones that are in hospitals without their family members because you can't allow family members into a hospital if there's not enough gear to protect them. So if there aren't enough masks to go around, you don't have your family member with you when you're in the intensive care unit. You don't have your family member with you at the end of your life. And it is the case that sometimes people die alone in the hospital, but it is a hallmark of this moment in time. That is something that nurses and doctors are talking about because they're filling in that space. Mm-hmm. And then after someone has passed away, we're not really allowed to grieve in the way that we normally grieve. And my experience as a nurse, my experience as someone who's lost, family members who are close to me, both of those are rituals for us to move through as we go from, being in life together to celebrating the life of someone that we have loved. Both being with them at the end of their life, caring for them, sending them off with love is a ritual that is necessary, especially for those of us who remain. And the same is true for a funeral. When you say goodbye, let go of that person and return back to the balance of your family, the people who are there to support and love you. Those two things are missing right now, in part because we weren't ready, not really ready for this pandemic. And it won't be the last time that we experience this. And this is going to go on for a while. So I do think that, we hear the stories of the hard work of providers right now. They are, facing incredible challenges. But they're going to be bearing a kind of weight from the trauma that we're all experiencing that is going to need tending to when we're through this. And I think, for me, I don't want to build a statue or a monument to the healthcare providers or a ticker tape parade. I want to build a system, a better system. I think that's how we honor everybody who's been through this together, is to make sure we're never this vulnerable again.
That's a really good point, Erin, about the ticker tape parade. Yes, I definitely want to continue celebrating the healthcare workers that are on the front lines and that are serving as family members, in place of those of us who can't be with our loved ones while they're sick or as they're dying, which is a absolutely horrible thing. Not to be together. And you're right about that trauma, that's going to stay with them and carry them. So I think in addition to, saying thank you with a healthcare system that works better for them and for all of us, that it will also have to give some thought to, what kind of emotional, spiritual support are we going to provide to healthcare workers who have gone through this pandemic so that they can work and process through that trauma. As we start to think about the ripple effects from this pandemic, that's definitely something I hadn't thought of, and that's another way that we can continue to support all of our healthcare workers in the aftermath of this. So thank you for bringing that up and sharing that. Another question I had for you was just around, your role as a community member, as someone who spends a lot of time talking with folks in your Synod district, or even when you were on the campaign trail running for governor in 2018. I'm sure you've heard so many stories from people about their vision for Minnesota. And I'm just curious for you personally, as you think about the vision of what our community looks like and feels like and supports one another on the other side of this pandemic, what are you hoping for? What do you see?
I've been thinking about this a lot, in part because, we're heading into a balloting process within our DFL party. And there are all sorts of issues, right, that I want us to tackle, whether it is fixing the healthcare system, making sure that we can earn a fair wage in our work, that we have paid family leave and earn sick, that we actually acknowledge and tackle structural racism and repair the damage of that that set of issues that I feel like I have been talking about for a long time, really, really important. And, you know, we're seeing the consequences of not taking those actions. So when we get through this, and I expect if I'm lucky enough to be elected next year, we're going to see a budget deficit and an economy that has likely slipped into a recession. We experienced that during the Great Recession. You know, I feel very clear about what we need to do in that moment, and it does include raising some revenue that we can't cut our way out of those tough situations if we want to look out for everybody in Minnesota and build a future that includes all of us. But the other thing that has really been front of mind for me is the way in which we participate in politics. And, you know, you mentioned the 2018 race, and it taught me that there's a real appetite for politics that is hopeful, that is about not just solving our problems, but that is inclusive of all of us and practices something rooted more in our shared humanity, in things like joy and love. And as I don't live too far away from the governor's residence here, so there was a loud protest a couple weeks ago outside the governor's residence. And there were actual candidates that were there, including Jason Lewis, who are using their powerful platforms to incite division over the question of should we open up the economy again. I just feel like that is a politics that doesn't serve us anymore. It pushes a lot of people away from engaging, pushes a lot of people away from voting. But more importantly, it leaves us separated from one another, and it makes it harder for us to actually achieve the things that we need to do for one another to build a future for people. So I am a woman. I ran for statewide office as a woman, learned a lot about gender in the course of that race, and understand that there are certain feelings that are ascribed to women, softness and feelings, emotions, etc., that are sometimes undervalued versus strategy and muscle and decisiveness. And I always laugh at that because I think of, you know, the work that I've done as a mom and as a nurse and as a candidate and as an elected official, and I can be plenty decisive. It doesn't mean that I am devoid of my humanity. And I think if we want to build something that is powerful for people, we got to show up with our whole humanity again. That means the full range of experiences and what we're feeling and expressing together. And I think if we do that, we're going to be more successful. So that has been top of mind for me, so much so that I'm thinking more about that than I am thinking about what are we going to accomplish. It's how we are going to accomplish it together. And I hope that's right. I think that's right. And I want to test it out in this next chapter of my politics if I'm lucky enough to earn a seat in the Senate.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that, Erin. Yeah, I definitely think there's, as I've been sitting with this question a lot lately about, you know, what do we need in our toolbox? Who do we need at the table to rebuild from here, and to really actually fix these systems that are so broken and rooted in white supremacy and oppression. And I think you're right that having a political process and a system that people actually want to participate in is going to be monumental and key in helping to get these policies enacted and actually do some good. So I appreciate you sharing that. So I'm gonna move us on to our conversation with Amira. So thank you, Erin, and please do stick around. We're gonna have some questions from the audience. And just as a reminder to folks, if you have questions for Erin or Amira as we begin our conversation with her, please feel free to put those in the chat and we'll do our best to get to them in just a little bit here. So now it is my pleasure to introduce Amira Adawe. She is the founder and executive director of the Beautywell Project, a nonprofit organization that aims to combat skin lightening and chemical exposures, as well as addressing other environmental impacts in Minnesota and nationwide. She's also an adjunct instructor at the University of Minnesota School of Public Health. Please welcome Amira.
Hi, Julie. Hi, everyone.
Hi, Amira. We're so glad you could join us today. It's wonderful to see you. We're going to start things off with our usual question. How are you feeling? How are you holding up today?
Thank you. That's really a great question these days. I'm doing good. It's, you know, every day it's different. We just have to welcome every day like it is. In the beginning, I think it was kind of difficult for me because events like this, pandemics, reminds you like old days of trauma days, and my family is scattered all over the world, and so, and I have some elder generations in my family who have underlying issues that COVID might be a huge at risk. So making sure that everybody is okay. And then I had, you know, in the past, losing my mother when I was not near her. So I don't want to see that same thing happening with the rest of my family. And so that has been something that was difficult, but it has been also okay to stay in touch with them, like structuring my day to talk to them midday in the day, because they're all over the world, so times are different too. And then also staying hopeful, you know, me and my family, we went through so many events in our life that is very similar to pandemic, because your whole life changes like one day, and so being hopeful, I think, is some of the things that help me to continue to do what I do, and then also focusing on how I can be helpful to people who are around me, the community that's around me, and be supportive to people who I work with.
Yeah, that's great. That was one of the things I think I was most impressed by in our conversation, Amira, was just what you're doing right now to support your community, especially as it relates to the pandemic. And I think that's definitely something that we all need to hold as we're going through this pandemic, is that for folks who are refugees or immigrants, that this experience feels all too familiar, and to, you know, just have space for that, and remind ourselves of how everyone is experiencing this pandemic differently. To the point around your public health experience, tell us a little bit about how your background in public health is now informing your work with the Beautywell project in the face of this pandemic.
Yeah, thank you, Julie. So when this pandemic happened, so I've been working in public health 15 years now. So when I first started working in public health 15 years ago, I started working in local government. And so I have experienced outbreaks in the past, H1N1 and measles outbreak that particularly happened in the Somali community. And so when outbreaks happen, it has huge impact in communities, especially communities that are language is English is their second language, and also have a lot of health issues, but also health literacy problems. And so the first thing came to my mind is that, oh my God, you know, like this is gonna hit hard the Somali community and the East African community and other immigrants. And so what can I do? And so immediately I called, and the other sad thing is that it's very few of us that have public health background. So I called a very good friend of mine who is also a colleague. She's also a Somali and who has a public health expertise. And I called her and I said, what can we do? We have to do something before it gets like out of hand. And so we organized a group of Somali doctors and also nurses. And so we hosted several call conferences. And then Farhi and I, we created different response teams within the East African communities, training them. And so the training is not only about COVID, but also how can they do outreach. And the people that we selected and trained were community leaders who are also influentials. Because the thing is, a lot of the people in my community in the beginning, this was like a flu kind of to them. They didn't understand the severity of this virus. And so there has been a lot of myth. And then also the resistance of when people go through so many different trauma events, the resistance of saying, oh, well, this happened to me, something worse than this happened to me, nothing happened, you know, so why will I focus on? So, and then also the concept of social distancing. I know as a public health, it's an important measure that we have right now, but a lot of communities, this is a foreign concept. This is more of a privileged concept, and so it did not work a lot of times. So we trained the community response team of ways they can approach, ways that they can address in a sense of educating people about social distancing. But then also the issue became more than public health, economic issue, food insecurity. And so making sure that we have teams that deliver food to the elders in our community, especially those that live high-rise buildings that might have a lot of access issues. And then also making sure that people don't go to the mosques, and mosques are closed. And so that was also another struggle, to make sure that some mosques are still open, and, you know, like to make sure that they're all closed and that people are not going. So immediately I had to respond to things that are also out of my scope. I am not an economic person, you know, I didn't go to school to learn how to address economic issues, but I had to help people to fill out the unemployment application, to make sure that people have some sort of understanding of what that is. And so we have been trying to be on the phone with them, because there's also isolation, that people might feel isolated in their homes. And so we have been trying ways that we can be supportive, both on the public health side, but also other issues. And then also the in-home schooling thing, that has been also another struggle for a lot of families that might, you know, like might have a language problem, and kids, you know, it really impacted a lot the young kids, especially ways to structure their days and all of that. And so it's like we're responding to multiple things that it's even sometimes out of our scope.
Absolutely. I think, yeah, out of scope is a great way to describe everything that you're trying to do in support of your community, Amira, especially when you think about, you know, what the Beautywell project is all about, which definitely has a, you know, background in health, but when all of a sudden you're wearing hats of, you know, trying to connect students to their distance learning and making sure people have access to food and financial support systems and the right information, that's definitely a lot to carry. How are you taking care of yourself right now while you're doing all of this work to support your community?
Yeah, thank you. Well, I'm staying, you know, I'm trying to stay healthy, scheduled my day each day to walk in the morning, early in the morning, or run in the morning or in the evening, and then also getting enough sleep. And then, but most importantly, also staying connected to people and my family and friends. And so, and then making sure that I eat well too, and stay healthy, and most importantly, protect myself, to wear face mask if I'm going to grocery stores, and also when I'm walking outside. So I'm trying my best to stay healthy, things that are under my control.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we need you. You gotta stay healthy and with us here. I also wanted to just raise, and we talked a little bit about this the other day, that preparations for Ramadan begin tonight, and Ramadan begins tomorrow. And as you were talking earlier about, you know, the concept of physical distancing being a privilege, and obviously Ramadan is a communal religious holiday, excuse me, and observance. How are you supporting your Muslim community as folks begin to prepare and celebrate Ramadan during a pandemic, which no one's ever done before? So just, I'd love to hear how you're thinking about staying connected and being in community with one another over this next month of Ramadan.
Yeah, Julie, I agree with you. Nobody have done Ramadan without going to a mosque. So I think that has been difficult for a lot of people. So some of the things that we're now doing is to make sure that at least people are getting meals. There are a lot of now organizations that are delivering meals to make sure that that's healthy meals, but also meals that are culturally relevant and that people can eat, because there's certain foods that we eat during Ramadan, so to make sure that foods are shifted that way. And in the radio show that I run every Saturday, I am dedicating the whole month of Ramadan to talk about different health issues, you know, like chronic diseases, how to make sure that people don't go to emergency rooms. Usually during Ramadan, people end up going to emergency rooms a lot because people that have diabetic or hypertension, they're not supposed to be fasting, but they do fast sometimes. And so sometimes what happens that these kind of complications happen and then they end up in the emergency room. So how do we make sure that people are hearing different health informations, that they can stay healthy, that they can exercise in their homes or walk outside so they don't feel isolated. And then also I'm inviting a couple of therapists on the radio to talk about mental health, because that's also an issue that's emerging now. And I think for everybody, but especially I am concerned about Ramadan people feeling a bit isolated because of people get used to Ramadan going to the mosque or eating with family members or friends and all of that. And so that I think can be a big issue, and that can actually create some sort of emotional issues and mental health issues. So we will discuss different episodes of that on the radio. And then also the response teams that we train, we will create a phone line where we will communicate, especially the elder generation, every night to check on them, like how are they feeling, how did their iftar went, and all of that, and then documenting all of that and see ways that we can differentiate our responses to the older generations versus the young generation. And the other thing also, we don't want to forget the younger generation, especially the youth. There's a lot of information out there that coronavirus doesn't impact, but it's also impacting them in terms of their health, especially those that have underlying issues like asthma and other health issues. And so making sure that these young ones are healthy. So we're going to launch very soon a survey, youth survey, to collect what, to understand what the needs for the youth are, whether it's a Ramadan related, but also outside Ramadan. And then also in the future, when this outbreak ends, like what are the things that people need, that we need to get ready for, especially thinking about the future, that we have systems, especially within community systems, emergency preparedness that are in place. But immediately now is to focus on the Ramadan and how people can stay healthy and most importantly, eat well.
Absolutely. Yeah, you bring up a good point, Amira, just about, we're trying to stay up to date with all of the information that we're getting now and attend to our immediate community needs, but also thinking about, when we have a moment to breathe, what are the what are we doing to prepare for potentially another wave, or to make sure that we have those systems in place to better serve our communities going forward. So thank you for that. I'm going to move us into a few questions that we've received from folks in the chat. Erin, this question is for you. How do you stay grounded in a politics of joy and love during challenging and divisive times such as these?
The source for me has always been people, because in us we see that we see resilience in people, we see hopefulness in people. I see people who are confronting on a regular basis challenges and overcoming them. So it has always been for me the source of joy, of energy, of possibility. But it's a little challenged right now. So I'm out looking for it, and constructing conversations in order to connect in a different way, even though we don't connect in person. We're doing regular town hall meetings. I'm on the phone on my own, calling people that I know from different parts of the state to hear about how people are doing, to hear how people are feeling, but also to help me keep my mind focused on the good in us, because especially with this much isolation and worry, and I'm doing a lot of reading about the virus and what it means for us, it's easy to slip into a place that is dark, and I got to keep looking for the light, because the light is where we can make progress for one another.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you said that, Erin. I love that idea of going out and looking for it. We have to find it. We have to seek it out. It is all too easy to be overwhelmed by the news and the information that we're receiving, and to slip into that dark space. So I'm grateful that you're for the reminder to seek out the light, and I think that's one of our goals with these gatherings, is to bring some light to our community and to connect with one another. So I appreciate that reminder. A question for both of you, as we're talking about all the information that is out there and how we decipher it and organize it and fact check it. How are you managing your intake of this overwhelming amount of news and information that's coming at us on a pretty consistent basis? Amira, I'll start with you if you could respond to that.
Yeah, I think that can be a lot of issue, especially how people get information, whether it's scientific and public health evidence-based or not. So for me, I think the most important information every day is to check MDH's website, the number of cases, and of course by race, and still they haven't done stratified data into ethnicity and all of that, but to understand the cases and the severity of it, and then also doing a lot of literature review each day to really understand about this virus and how we can simplify the information of this virus to people that might not go to this literature information that's heavily scientific. So understanding that information and hopefully it's simplifying for people. So going into these different journals to read about the virus, and then also of course listening to our governor and Jane Malcolm, the Commissioner of Health, and getting updates from them. So the sources that I usually go has to be evidence-based sources, whether it's CDC, MDH, or the local government. City of Minneapolis has been really great in developing information and really engaging communities. And so connecting, I think, to these different sites and getting information from these important sources is important and has been helpful to me. And also School of Public Health. It's so great that I have that connection with the School of Public Health. So calling some of the faculties, emailing them, and understanding. So the School of Public Health has been leading the modeling analysis for our state. And so having that, I think getting information from people who are working on this has been very helpful.
Great, thank you, Amira. How about you, Erin?
I think Amira has just done a perfect job of covering that, and I too am rooted in the Department of Health, the daily briefings with Commissioner Malcolm, with Governor and others, going to the CDC, to some of the journals that talk about both the science of this, but also the meaning of it. So Kaiser Family Foundation, Robert Wood Johnson. There are places that I don't go, obviously. There are some briefings that are more politically oriented. The social media, which has been, a place that I have both used to communicate and to listen and learn, has been particularly littered with a lot of conjecture that isn't helpful right now. And so I'm trying to refine my choices and then sharing information that I can with people. So we are building the muscle of following what is reliable and tested, so we can walk our way through this as efficiently and safely as possible.
Thank you, Erin. And thank you both, Amira and Erin, for joining us today and sharing with us your experiences and what you're doing to support the community and your hopes for how we go from here. Thank you to both of you. I'm going to turn it back over to Jerome for some closing remarks and one final guest speaker.
All right. Again, thank you everybody for being here today. Just a couple more minutes. I've got some information to share, and then we have one more invitee to come join us. So at the end of each one of these gatherings, we like to quickly highlight an important initiative that's stepping up to the plate to help combat the COVID-19 crisis. Today we welcome Shirley Sneeve, the Executive Director of the Tawahi Foundation. She's here to tell us a little bit more about a new initiative to support American Indian storytellers. Welcome, Shirley.
But thank you, Jerome. It's great to be here, and hope everyone's safe and happy out there. I'm with my coworker, the dog, today, so he's doing pretty good. So Tawahi Foundation supports American Indians through 4 initiatives in Minnesota: health and wellness, economic viability, education. And we're really excited to be one of the recipients of the COVID relief money. And we're going to plow that into our May 6th deadline for American Indians. And, we are storytellers. Native Americans are storytellers. And that is what's going to get our communities through, is being able to celebrate and to remember our elders and our relatives. And so what we're doing is we're creating an artist initiative, and we will select, well, we were going to select 7, but now it may be more. We may be able to select more because we have this extra money to provide us with stories of resilience and hope and how people are getting through this in any artistic genre. So I've talked to some playwrights, I've talked to some visual artists, I've talked to some sound designers, and I'm just really excited that we're able to engage Native Americans in Minnesota in a different way. So that's what we're up to. And it's tawahifoundation.org if you want to go there and take a look at the grant deadline and the guidelines. Thanks.
Thank you, Shirley. So we're asking our Pollen community to support the folks we've featured here today in whatever way you're able to. There's a lot of links in the chat to be able to do that. We're going to be sharing some links on social media, and you're going to receive an email follow-up after today's event. And one last call to action. If you're able, please reach out to 2 to 3 people who you know, set up a video chat with them, coworkers, family, friends, neighbors, anyone you want to connect with. Ask some of these questions as a way to sort of start your conversation. And if you want to share how those conversations go, please do so with the hashtag RUOKMN. Again, we're going to send a follow-up email after this conversation today. It's going to include the recording of the gathering, which you can share with other folks who weren't able to make it. Join us next Thursday, 2 p.m. We'll be here for our next gathering. If you can, jump onto pollenmidwest.org. Check out a story that we posted by Victoria Blanco about her experience raising kids and being a parent during this crisis. Ramadan Mubarak to those who celebrate, and stay healthy, stay connected. Thanks, everybody.